How about King Henry? That's another piece to Todd Monken's offensive puzzle that he's got working right now. Baltimore owns both of the NFL's number one rushing offense and defense. The Ravens have posted a plus 754 rushing yards differential, ranking as the second highest margin by any team through its first 5 games of a season since the 1970 league merger. There's been a few seasons since then. And number 22, make no mistake about it, is off to potentially a career year. Look at where he stands right now among running backs entering week 6. He's first in overall PFF grade, again, Pro Football Focus rankings, with a 90.3 grade. He's first in rushing yards with 571. I've also seen 572, so not sure which one it is. He's second in yards after contact with 318, and he's tied for first in rushing touchdowns with 6. How about rushing yards over on the left since 2020? Yeah, he leads the way, and it's a comfortable margin over Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs. Rushing yards since 2020. He's also on this list as well. Wait a second. What does that say on the left-hand side? I can't even see it. You guys see it? Hold on a second. Does that say YCO? Is he on this list, yards gained after contact? That is insane. In other words, Derrick Henry is superhuman, because on this list, in terms of rushing yards since 2020, he beats Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones in just the simple category of yards after contact. Yeah. That's one of one stuff there from 22. I had no idea that stat existed. Well, I knew it existed, but I didn't realize this was actually a thing. That is a mind-blowing statistic. You guys follow me on that one? 4,723 yards after contact. That's more yards just in general since 2020 that Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones have logged. Oh my. Wow. I'm absolutely blown away by that statistic. The king, man. That is a true king-like statistic right there. Wow. This, speaking of statistics, Ken McCusick, film study Ravens, friend of the show, great football mind. He put together the missed tackle rates for the season so far to date between Washington and Baltimore. Ravens have an 11.2% missed tackle rate. Commanders have a 14.6% tackle rate. And as he writes, that could be a problem for Washington stopping the Baltimore run game and Derrick Henry in particular. And yeah, I mean, does that not go hand in hand with what we just discussed? The number of yards after contact that this guy's put together. That is literally, I did not know that was a thing. And I actually can't stop thinking about that statistic. Wow. Damn. But certainly, Alan, I'm with you. That's an advantage they got to capitalize on, right? At that first point of contact, you're going to let Derrick Henry get by you and to the second level? Because once he gets to the second level, good night. Hey, something I'm doing new this season for the first time is game recaps for those of you who enjoy the shorter consumption types of habits when you consume your content. Short form, if you will. And how I'm doing this is in the form of 60 to 90 second Instagram reels the second games finish up. I give you my instant reactions and I post them to Twitter and Instagram. It is a new way for me to potentially interact with different people, different fans, just because everybody's different. Not everybody wants to listen to an hour plus long live stream when Sarah and I are diving into it, right? And so for those of you who may enjoy something a little bit different, a little bit shorter, a little bit easier to consume perhaps, find me on Twitter or Instagram at Bobby Baltimore and come hang with me after the game. Should be coming up at around 4:30 or so this weekend, assuming that it doesn't go to overtime like it did last weekend with a 1 o'clock start. So can't wait to see you guys over there. Appreciate you. Rich Eisen, NFL commentator, NFL personality, Big fan of his. He does weekly power rankings, and I thought, looking at it objectively, that he snubbed the Ravens based on what they've put on tape, based on who they've beat, based on what they've done over the last 3 weeks in terms of his top 10 power rankings entering week 6. Here's his explanation. I'll show you the full list and the top 10 right afterwards.
6 on the list, no change. Baltimore Ravens are still sitting there at 6. Might be too low for a lot of you folks since the guy on the screen is getting a lot of chatter for yet another MVP season that is forming. Derrick Henry is performing better than any running back through 5 weeks. Certainly in terms of rushing yards over the last 3 weeks, he's been as dominant as he has ever been. I'm putting the Ravens 6th on this list. They were kind of lucky to get through in Cincinnati last week. So that's why I got him at 6.
He's right. They are a little bit lucky because without that botched hold from the holder on Evan McPherson's kick, that operation, had that gone smoothly, Cincy wins that game, right? Cincy improves to what, 2-3? Ravens would have been a very, very different conversation. They're 3-2 right now. Look, that's been my big thing all week long, right? It's like trying to not allow it to be lost on you that the discussion the last 5 days would have been polar opposite in terms of, and granted, hey, there's still been a lot of discussion, a lot of hard conversations, some harshness, right, with this defense. And we've had those. And we've called out specific problems. And we've looked at the Marcus Williams and the Eddie Jacksons and the Marlon Humphreys and the Nate Wiggins on the back end, right? We've had those conversations. But I think it would have been so much more violent, so much more intense had they lost that game in shootout fashion. So, perspective, a little bit of perspective. I think it's fair to say that they got a little bit of luck. Sometimes you need it. And if it fell in Baltimore's lap, it fell in Baltimore's favor. And so I'm okay with that. But I do still think that Rich snubbed them in terms of not being a top 5 team so far through 5 weeks. Here's his top 10. We'll go 10-1. He's got Dallas at 10. Dallas at 10. He's got Buffalo at 9. He's got Tampa Bay at 8. Atlanta 7. Baltimore 6, as you heard. Washington is 5. Detroit is 4. Houston is 3. Minnesota is 2. And Kansas City is 1. Look, I think the Ravens are a top 5 team. I'm fine with them being outside the top 3. I think they deserve to be somewhere around 4 or 5. I get it. Washington's hot right now. Very hot. And again, they have based on EPA, they have the hottest quarterback in the entire league in rookie Jaden Daniels. But I would think that the Ravens deserve to be in the top 5 here. I'm not saying that there's any pretenders in the top 5. We'll see about that once Washington comes to town on Sunday. I had predicted that Cleveland the week prior and Greg Schwartz, their defensive coordinator, would give Jaden Daniels his first rookie moment. I couldn't have been more wrong. And we'll see if that happens this week. Look, the Ravens defense, hard to predict. Sunday night, the lights are bright and they absolutely dominate, aside from one iconic Josh Allen play. I think it was to clear Shakir, if I'm not mistaken. And aside from that, Ravens defense was sound on all 3 levels, right? Getting pressure in Josh's face. Kyle Van Noy had a hell of a game. Middle part of the defense was not soft, middle of the field wise. Back end did its job. And it was anything but. It was anything but Sunday in Cincinnati. And again, I don't care if it's only just 5 or 6 plays. That's 5 or 6 game-changing plays. Gutting, gashing plays, right? Jamar Chase finishes with 193 yards through the air. It's just not going to cut it. Where would you guys have him? Duke says KC must not be lucky that Likely doesn't wear an 8.5 shoe. Slippery slope. That's the other thing. If not for a toe, if not for Isaiah being a size 10, 11, whatever he is, Ravens are probably 4-1. and easily in the top 3 of this list. If not for coughing up a lead, a 10-point lead to Gardner Minshew and the Vegas Raiders. But all that's in the past. They're a 3-2 football team, very dangerous. And if this defense can start to stack, if this defense can find cohesion, if Zach Orr can implement and give Dean Pease a role in which he can immediately impact this team, I like the ability, I like the chances of them rounding out into form, just as they did in 2022 before Lamar went down, with Mike McDonald struggling out of the gate to adjust. I got to weigh in on some of the conversation surrounding this whole rivalry. Look, nobody out there actually thinks that Commanders Ravens is a rivalry, do we? Come on. No series that's only had a 7-game sample size over the years can be considered a rivalry. I get it. Geography-wise, this is going to be fun because for the first time in a minute, both teams are competitive simultaneously. And for the first time ever, both teams have electrifying quarterbacks. Still a long way to go for Jaden to be compared to Lamar, but he has been nothing short of electrifying through 5 weeks. But this is not a rivalry. I get it. It might be one of those fun things for those of you who are in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and you have internal rivalries with family members and whatnot. But the Ravens lead the all-time series 4-3. In the John Harbaugh era, it's a tied series at 2 apiece. This is not a rivalry. It's just, I have a hard time when I see some of those tweets rolling around. I'm like, okay, I get it. There might be geographical ties, but the way that I personally define rivalry, and maybe everybody's different in terms of definitions, I refer to something as storied, with longevity, with iconic personalities. When we're talking about sports rivalries, it's got to be something that's balanced. Okay, this is balanced, but it's a 7-game sample size. So I can't get behind that. I hope this one goes well. Don't get me wrong. I can't wait to see what it's all about. Hopefully CBS gets what it's aiming for.